Let's get into some shite. Hi, folks. Welcome to the Outta Toon Podcast. And, this is one of those podcasts that you don't have to have any kind of studying up for. You don't need to learn anything. Just tune in, give it a little bit of a listen. And I don't do anything deep. I don't have just an ongoing conversation. We just start new conversations generally every time, right? Isn't that how it goes? How are you? How you doing out there? I'm doing pretty good. I feel kind of like I'm having a recovery of creative spark. I'm hearing a noise. What is this? Can you hear that noise? I'm in my studio. My computer's been awfully loud recently. Maybe that's what it is. Anyway, I feel like I'm having a reawakening of some creative impulses. I've really gone through a dry spell, and I just haven't been in the mood to do much. Partly just, I don't know what it is, really. Maybe it was the holidays. But I just went through just kind of like, I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to make anything. For an artist, that's not a good place to be in. But I kind of feel a little spark coming back. Kind of feel some new things going on. So that's cool. Feeling good about that. It's a Monday, getting a podcast off early, right? That's kind of a new thing. I don't know what happened toward the end, really, the big end of last year, when things really started slipping. But I'm trying to get back in on trying to get things going again. So be patient with me. If you're new to this podcast, I have a question. What the heck happened to your life that you made the decision to listen to this podcast? Oh, my goodness. Look. Get some therapy, please. You're making horrible decisions. I'm glad to have you. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging out with us. Look, if you hear anything on here and you just want to keep coming back, I'm all for it. Keep doing it. But I question your judgment at this point. We do have a lot of people who just come in to hang out now, and I don't know why they do it. I'm not even going to question it anymore. I appreciate everybody for taking the time to listen if you want to. It's not the deepest podcast. Sometimes we talk about some deep stuff, right? Most of the time, maybe not. I'm drinking cold coffee today, and it's good. Cold coffee is good, but cold bad coffee is not good. This is cold good coffee, so I'm happy to have that even. Studio's looking good. Getting in there. I've been trying to do some studio redecorating, making it a little more functional. I'm doing more work at home now. I had a gallery for a while. I was working in my gallery, but I'm doing more stuff here, and I'm getting ready to start getting into what do you call it? Life coaching. I hate that word, life coaching. I'm going to be a coach for your life. No. First of all, I hate the word coaching. I think it's because when I was a kid, I hated athletics. I was not an athletic person, and I wasn't, I was one of the last people chosen. People think because I'm 6'5", people think that's one of the first things. It's like, oh, you play basketball, right? What? Why? Because when I see a short person, I don't think they're a horse jockey. Why am I a basketball player just because I'm 6'5"? I'm not a big fan of basketball, and also I'm old. So, but when I was young, I didn't play a lot of basketball. I remember here's a thing that happened when I was in college. I was a theater major, hung out with the theater people, and a lot of them liked to play basketball. And they would always say, hey, let's go over and shoot some hoops in it. And so, you want to be cool. You want to hang out with your friends and do the things, right? So we would go and just shoot. And there was no competition, so it was okay, I guess. Just kind of go and throw some stuff. I like to do that especially when I was young, just for relaxation. And I guess we had done some rehearsing of a show we were doing, and so we all just said, let's go over and shoot some hoops, and we did. And most of the people are much, much better than I was. So apparently some of the basketball players saw us and thought, hey, let's go take advantage of these guys. I think they saw me and another guy or two that were tall and thought we were good. So they came over and said, hey, let's play a game. And I was like, that's when I was just like, no, I don't. But everybody wanted to do it. So I just kind of thought, all right, why not? I'll do it. Now, have you ever had that time when you're really bad at something, but for some reason, this happens to me when I play pool, because I'm not that good of a pool player. So it's like sometimes you play pool and then you play against someone and every ball goes in and they think you're a shark, but you're really just lucky. So that's what was happening. It was like every basket I threw up went in. So these guys thought, oh, wow, this guy knows what he's doing. So they turn it up. And I just remember one of the guys this guy was on the college basketball team. And I shot a basket and he was going to do the rebound. And he jumped up in front of me and came down. His back hit my face, square on my face, and busted my nose. I got a bloody nose. I used to get bloody noses a lot when I was a kid, when I was younger. And so I'm bleeding on the court. And that was the last time I ever played basketball with anybody. I was like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. When you start bringing blood into the sport, that's not for me. I'm going to go back to theater with the pretend blood instead of the real blood. But that's the way it always happens. When you get lucky and people think you're good. And that's my whole life. Lucky and pretending that I'm good. And sometimes it works. So if you listen to the podcast and you like the podcast, it's all fake. Hey, this week, here's what I discovered. Now, I'm an incense person. I love incense. Okay? When I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s. I was born in the 60s. I guess I was a young person in the 60s. I don't remember the 60s much at all. But I remember the 70s, and I hated the 70s. Sorry. I always tell people I hate 70s music. They think I'm crazy. All my friends love 70s music. All my friends who grew up in the 70s, they miss all the 70s. I hate it. Music to me didn't become music until the 80s. You give me 80s music, New Wave, The Police, Tears for Fears. Those are my bands, all right? That's who I liked. All my friends seem to like James Taylor and Fleetwood Mac and Journey and Heart. I like Heart, but I like 80s Heart better. I don't know. I think I'm just strange. But anyway, I can remember. So incense was really big, I guess, because pot was big at that point, and people had to disguise the pot smell. So they burned the incense, right? Isn't that what incense was for? My sister, I don't know that she was smoking pot. I don't think she was, but she loved the incense, and she would burn the incense. She tried to get into the hippie scene for a little while when she was young, but I could just remember smelling strawberry incense coming from her bedroom. Oh man, that smelled so good. And I think I got addicted. Now I love incense, and I always liked going into kind of hippie shops for no reason other than just the incense. I love the incense smell, so I'm still kind of addicted. And I like good quality incense. Some incense just smells like smoke. But you give me some good stuff. Give me some good traditional Japanese incense. It smells like sandalwood. Oh, that's really good. But there's certain brands that are better than others. So what I'm saying is I'm just a big incense person. I buy a lot of incense, which my wife hates because she has allergies. So I have to be really careful where I burn them. I usually just burn them in my studio. I'll close the door and burn them. And then the scent eventually kind of wafts away. Is that a word? Waft. It's a word you don't use all the time, but it's kind of a cool word. Waft. I think I just wafted. Anyway, so this past week, I bought a bunch of really good incense. There's a Indian grocery store down the road from us. I think I mentioned it last week even. And bought a bunch of incense from them. It's really good stuff. But I started burning incense like using have you ever tried this like with charcoal, one of those little charcoal discs? I never did that before. You can burn some really, really cool stuff with that. You have to get like resins. You have to buy resins like frankincense resin and dragon's blood resin. And there's some other things that you can, man, it's really, really cool. But you can also burn herbs on it. And I've started doing this. All of you witches know what I'm talking about. I'm just finding it out. So you could burn sage, you can burn pine, you could burn all kinds of fun stuff, herbs and stuff using the charcoal disc. So my house now smells like I'm casting spells on the entire neighborhood. So anyway, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying this newfound sensory overload, I should say. So I don't know why I'm telling you except to do it. Burn some incense. Get into it. Make your place smell good. Make yourself smell good. If you like it. If you have asthma or if you have allergies like my wife does, maybe don't. Or do it somewhere. Maybe it's a little more open so you don't get really, you don't have an attack. All right. What else? Oh, hey, we're all getting older. This is going to be one of those podcasts where I'm just going to, you remember the old days where I talk about things that no one wants to hear? This is what this is going to be. This is going to be when I talk about depressing things. I don't know why, but for some reason I've been getting these. Well, let me say this. I'm going to talk. Let me come back to that here in just a minute. I want to mention to you that I finished watching Breaking Bad. Okay. My wife and I started that. We started binge watching it late last year. We finally finished it last week. It's an amazing show, as you probably already know. I think we're very behind in it. What did it end in? Like the it was like 2015, 16 or something that it ended. Been a couple of other series. Better Call Saul. There was a movie, El Camino, which we just watched as well. That's a good movie to watch immediately after you finish watching the series. It's just like another episode of the series, but I won't do spoilers. Some of the characters aren't there. Most of the characters aren't there, but I won't go into what it's just. Let me just say it's a good follow up. Now I'm getting ready. We're gonna watch Better Call Saul, which is a prequel at some point, and I've heard that it might even be better than the show. But anyway, we finished watching it. Very happy to have done so. I'm glad I made the choice. It was a commitment. We loved it. Man, it's a brutal show. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. All right, going back, let me just say in the show, the reason I mentioned it made me think about it because some of these topics I'm getting ready to talk about, I guess, are kind of mentioned in the show. But I've just noticed that recently there's been this, what's the word? Kind of a lot. It's not a great word, but there's been a lot of, I don't know, different outlets where I'm getting exposed to the idea that when you get old, you get pushed out of society. All right. How do I say that properly? And it's kind of weird, but it's coming from a lot of different sides, I suppose. So it kind of started, I think I mentioned this on the podcast. I read a book of essays by Donald Hall, who used to be the poet laureate of the United States. He was a poet. He did do some prose writing. But he wrote a book of essays called, I believe it's called After 80. Something similar to that. Highly recommend it. You can get it on, if you want to be depressed, you can get it on Amazon, other places as well. But it's kind of his reflection on getting older. And he, at the time, he's gone now. He's gone. He's not here. His work is still here, which we could argue might actually be him. But anyway, he just talks about what life is like as you get older, as you get into your 80s. And it's not very palatable. It's not something that you want to look forward to, I think. I mean, I look forward to just staying alive. But from what I'm seeing, it's just, man, it might be a little depressing, you know? And I don't think it's about necessarily physical things that happen to you. Obviously, the longer you live, the more things that are going to happen to your body, the more aches and pains, diseases, whatever that's going to happen as you break down. But society kind of forces you out. You kind of get pushed out of society. Obviously, a lot of your friends and family die. They're not there anymore. So I think you start feeling a little more alienated, a little more alone in the world. But the way people treat older people, and I do it, I don't think about it, but I've done it my whole life. It's just kind of like, oh, I don't know anything about that grandpa. I don't really need to relate to them. And there are some people who are really good at it, but I just kind of like, oh, that person, I don't know that person. I think we have nursing home, assisted living centers that are full of people who, that's their community, but their community as they get older kind of dwindles away. And most people don't seek out friendships with older people. That's just a fact of life, right? So what I'm seeing is that it becomes more and more of a lonely existence, more and more of an existence where you kind of get pushed out of society. You're kind of, I don't know, you get a feeling that you're not needed. You're not useful. And that's how I'm seeing that coming to me from a lot of different sides, a lot of different ways. And one of those ways, last night, I watched a movie. Again, an older movie. You've probably seen it. Called Lucky. Now, this is a movie that was done with Harry Dean Stanton, who I love, and that's the main reason why I watched it. I didn't know what it was really going to be about, but Harry Dean plays a 90-year-old man. I'm guessing he was 90 at the time. Certainly looked like it. But, a man in his 90s who is trying to live and cope with life and what life, I guess you got to say the end of your life is like. I hate even saying that because what if you go on to hundreds? Well, I mean, every era is potentially the end of our life, right? Some people don't make it into their 60s. So this was a very interesting movie in that he was pretty healthy, smoked a lot. See, that was the way my grandmother was. My grandmother smoked, I don't know, several packs getting into her late 80s and 90s. And but she wasn't that healthy. So Harry Dean Stanton in the movie anyway is very healthy, smoking, drinking, and just I think he's kind of an intellectual, still has a lot of his mental faculties. Some of us lose those much earlier. But that kind of the focus on how when you get that age, there's not a place for you in society really starts, for me anyway, I guess at my age, starts becoming highlighted and becomes very, very depressing. And so even when he's like interacting with people that he knows, it's almost like it's almost like you get treated like a kid. And that was one of the things that Donald Hall talked about is you've gotten to this point where you've got all this life experience. You've learned so much. You got a full brain. You got a full mind. Your body might be breaking down, but you're smarter than your average person because of your life experience. But everybody treats you like you're 4. I guess everybody becomes very patronizing to you. Is that right? Patronizing is you shop there. Patronizing is they treat you like you're less than, right? I forget my words because I'm old. So, yeah, that was what was interesting about the movie is just watching how alienated you become in society, which is not something I look forward to, but I do want to live as long as I can. And my wife and I have talked a lot about it. There's no guarantees who's going to go first. It's not a race. Odds are that I'm going to win. But you never know. you never know what's going to happen. A lot of people in my family live pretty long. Maybe I'll be lucky. Maybe I'll be lucky like Harry Dean Stanton was lucky. Anyway, catch that movie if you're in the mood. Look, have a glass of really, really good whiskey while you watch it, because it's not going to make you feel good. The ending's kind of a little tiny bit of a feel good movie. David Lynch is in it. He just passed away last week, right? Not a great actor. He's a good director, obviously, but not that good of an actor. And actually, I think it was full of a lot of Harry's friends who weren't like really, really great actors. So along this line, I want to talk about something that I don't even know if it's smart to share, but I tend to share things with you guys. You listen to the show, so I think the trade-off is that I share things, right? That's what the show is about. And this too, I may have mentioned a little bit in the past, but I kind of want to go into it a tiny bit deeper, since we're talking about this subject, which is the subject of dementia. I think when I was younger, I just always thought I could battle dementia. If I ever came to that point where I felt like my mind was going, or who knows what that kind of silly thought is that you can fight, you can battle dementia or cancer or anything else on your own. It's a young person's thing. It's a young egoic person's thing, right? So I don't know. I just never thought it would be something that I would ever have to think about encountering. And I started noticing just recently, a few years, and part of this just happens because you get older. As you get older, things in your brain kind of get scrambled. You can't remember people's names. You can't remember dates. Just general things that you've never had a problem remembering. I remember not too long ago, I couldn't remember one of the names of the kids in the hall with my favorite comedy group. It made me so mad. Sometimes I can't remember my wife's name, so I just say, hey, honey. I don't even call her honey. I just say, hey, she's right there, so I don't really need her name. I mean, if I'm in a grocery store and I need to talk to her, then I'm in trouble. But you feel that as you start getting older. It's frustrating. There's jokes about it. But what are you going to do? It's just part of getting old, right? But there's just a little bit more of a depth to that I've started feeling recently. And I don't know how to describe it really accurately to people who aren't like this. But if you're an artist, especially like me, I've lived my whole life as an artist, and most of my tools are interior. Right. So creative ideas, impulses, I've been a cartoonist my whole life. I have to write gags for cartoons. I spend a whole lot of time like interiorly thinking and waiting for ideas to come. There's a certain place inside me that I feel like it's like a room where I can go and ideas just like pop out. I don't know where they come from. They just pop. So, but I do know I could go there. So I can remember when I was writing cartoons on a regular basis and I needed ideas, it's kind of like meditation. It is meditation. Just go inside and wait, and there it is. There's your idea. Oh, man, that's great. And most artists know that, whether it's a song, how to interpret a song, a poem, how to write something, ideas for write. All that stuff comes from inside. Most of the time, it comes to you in a form that you don't even know where it came from, right? It's just like, there it is. What I have noticed recently is that's not as reliable as it used to be. So that little room that I would go to, sometimes the door is locked. So it's like occupied. You can't get in. And that's very frustrating. It's also, I've noticed, and this is how I described it to my wife, if you're an athlete, if you've been an athlete your whole life, you can tell, and this is theoretically, if you get some kind of disorder like Parkinson's, I think you probably know it way before you get any kind of diagnosis because you're so used to what your body can do. You're so used to how you move your body. And you could feel, oh, that doesn't feel right. Even if you choose to ignore it, you know something's different. Something's not acting or reacting like it usually does. And for me, I think that's the way it is right now. Like things inside in my mind, on the interior, something's not going the way it usually is. So I've been like really, really hyper aware of dementia and wondering if that's the path I'm heading towards. I'm mentioning it now because, see, I do feel like that I've noticed it on the podcast. Maybe you have too. And so I got to apologize if you have. But one of the things I love about the podcast, one of the things I've always loved about the podcast that I don't do scripted podcasts. So even when I was doing a podcast with a partner, we would kind of sit down and outline what we were going to talk about, but we didn't really have a script, obviously. We just talked. And so there's this thing, like a lot of podcasts will edit. I don't like to edit. So I just like to kind of, it's almost improv. It's just like, here's what I'm going to talk about and get in and just talk. So it's kind of walking on a tightrope, tight wire, high wire. See, that's what I'm talking about. But anyway, it's like, so you just get into there and it's just, that kind of feeling of winging it is great. But there have been some podcasts that I've done, a few podcasts that I've done that I just, and sometimes it's just because I'm rusty, but other times it's just like something's not firing right. It doesn't feel smooth. So I don't know. It's easy to kind of throw it up to maybe the beginnings of dementia. Maybe my mind is going. I don't know. But I just feel like it has affected my creativity. So I'm looking out for it, folks. I apologize if you notice any kind of difference in the podcast. It's something I'm working on. I'm doing exercises and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, ultimately, you can't control what happens. You can't control what happens to your body. There are certain things. You can keep your body healthy. You can eat good. You can exercise. But you can't, if you do get Parkinson's, you can't control that, right? You can't. I've had problems with my eyes where I'm just like, my retina's decided to detach. I'm a visual artist. Do I need that? No. Can I control that? No. So a big part of what the movie Lucky was about was acceptance. And I feel like that is the entire lesson of aging. We're all aging. We're all getting older. But you get to a certain point, let's just say on the other side of middle age. Sometimes people will say middle age. I'm not middle-aged anymore, folks. No one lives to be 124. They don't. I'd like to. I'm going to try to. But I'm getting up there. I can't take the senior discount at anywhere yet. I'm just not. I don't have that level of acceptance. But I do have to learn to accept what comes to me as far as like who I am physically, and mentally even, and maybe emotionally as well. Emotionally is really cool. As you get older, you become a little more emotionally stable. I feel like mentally, there's a lot of benefits of getting old. And honestly, I haven't had a lot of negative benefits from aging, really, physically. I think the worst is just metabolism. I put on a lot of weight when I don't eat a lot. I'd like to fix that. But ultimately, I think that the thing that you have to realize about getting old and aging, and I'm saying this it's this kind of advice to you who are not quite ready for it. You haven't heard what goes on the other side. I'm kind of coming back to tell you, it's a lot of acceptance. It's a lot of acceptance. I think that's probably the number one thing about getting old is learning how to accept your situation. Because as you get older, you do see a lot of people die, whether it's family, whether it's, your parents, probably grandparents, everybody's going to pass as you get older. Possibly people really close to you in your immediate family. then you. But before you do, there's a lot of things that happen to your body, and not all of them are things that are necessarily painful, but they're changes, and they're changes that are strange and are weird, and you'd prefer that they didn't happen, like vision that goes away or hearing that goes away. But there just comes a point in your life where you just have to go, oh, that's happening. All right. So you can fight it. You can freak out about it. You can punch the air. You can also go to the doctor, because sometimes you can get things repaired. You can get things fixed. But even when you go to the doctor, maybe you can't. Just going to the doctor, there's a certain amount of acceptance of, okay, let's see if I can take care of this. And if I can't, I'm just going to accept that that's the way it's going to be for the rest of my life. I'm going to have to adapt and change to it. So acceptance is going to be an important part of our lives as we get older and older. It's an important part of our lives wherever we are, every stage of our life. That's why I'm talking about it to you now. But I'm going to tell you, as you get older, it's a skill. It's a skill that you need to start developing now, because you're really going to need it as you get into those older years. And I'm just a beginner at being old. I just started. I mean, I'd like to go into the 80s. I'd like to be a Harry Dean Stanton 90-year-old guy going into the hundreds. I saw a dude, 100-year-old. I can't remember what he was doing, but he was a 100-year-old guy, and he looked like he was in his 70s. He didn't look young. I want to be that guy. I don't think I'm on the path to that. I got to start working on getting myself a little healthier. Maybe I shouldn't be drinking cold coffee like I'm drinking today, but it's so good, right? Anyway, that's something I've been concerned about a lot recently, is just, am I going to be one of those people that gets dementia and I don't know what's going on around me? Kind of scary. I've always utilized my mind. I don't want to lose that. But hey, maybe I'll do better podcasts if I do. See what happened? I was going to do the exit music for the podcast, and I pushed the stop button. That's because I'm old. All right, it's a good time to stop and go home and take a nap. I'm going to have to start labeling buttons. All right. We're going to push this stop button right here. Push it right now.